A very belated Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year coming up here. Let's talk about the snow and the cold coming on in. Is there going to be any in the first place? Well, outside of the Rocky Mountains that do have a decent amount of snow, there's not really a ton across a big deal of the country. Yes, certainly snow cover on the ground, northern plains, central U.S., but it's not really a big deal. These are temperatures compared to average over the course of each year period for December. These records go all the way back to 1893, yes, the 1800s, and this is top 5 warmest, some 1s and 2 warmest Decembers on records, a lot of top 20 warmest. When you average the whole country together, this is the warmest December on record. Wow. Big time heat for sure for this time of year. Overall, it's going to be a fairly quiet pattern. Big areas of high pressure across a big deal of the nation, keeping some systems confined well to the west coast. And then we still have this guy here swirling around, bringing in a little bit of moisture. We're talking about mist, some drizzle, still some rain across the northeast. A decent amount of it in spots. We'll get a little lake enhancement, an attempt. It's barely going to add up on any surfaces. Some on grass, I think very minimal, just maybe a minor salting elsewhere on the actual pavement. Southeast has got a little action, but still not much going on across a big deal portion of the country unless you're extremely far to the left coast. How about the rainfall? Yeah, another chunk of rain over the next couple of days for sure. Oh boy. Okay, another 1 to 2 inches in spots. Now, 3-4 inches might fall in spots around Missouri and Kansas and Iowa, but that's not all going to accumulate on the ground. Temperature is a little bit too marginal. A lot of that will melt before ever really accumulating. Not much at all for the Great Lakes. There's a little bit into the northeast, but that's not a big deal at all for this time of year over the next week. Maybe spotty 1, 2, 3 inches. You got to get up into portions of Lake Nova Scotia really to see much of anything. Not too much out at west either. I mean, it's going to be a pretty quiet pattern for much of the Rockies. You got to go way up into the mountaintops to really see too much of anything. This is just kind of a general guideline, a reminder for when we do have snow systems that you can't get how much is exactly going to fall accurately a week out. That's just getting together like the idea that, okay, there's actually going to be a storm. When you get into the 3-4 days out, then you're talking about, okay, there's probably going to be a storm, but the impacts, the 10 inches of snow, it might be 30 miles this way, it might be 250 miles this way. It is really not until 1 to 2 days out when you can actually get the timing and the actual accumulation and impacts squared up on where you're actually going to really be seeing those type of dynamics. We do get into a colder pattern. We're going to see more waves of cold air. We used to see this batch of warm air push on to the north, but it's going to be the opposite. This isn't extreme cold, but it's certainly going to be more persistent and more true for what we should be expecting this time of year. The big time cold stays bottled up decently far to the north, well north of even the southern Canadian cities. So it's not going to be super cold, really. Just chilly across the southeast, and that's compared to average. I mean, this is a very average pattern except for far north, where it's still going to stay on the warm side of things. And this is good news for most of you that are tired of seeing a lot of rain across the Northeast, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes. It's going to be a drier pattern setting up for next week. Typical stronger El Nino, where it is pretty wet across much of the South. A very happy New Year to you.
This is your Norcast weather update.